On this Sunday night, 18 children killed in an aerial assault on southern Gaza. A baby pulled from the womb survives, while dozens of others are killed. As Israel's prime minister vows more attacks are to come. Crucial support for the war in Ukraine may soon be mobilized. A $61 billion U.S. aid package moves ahead. What will it mean on the front lines? The dangerous stunt that left a Toronto teen in life-threatening condition in yet another incident of subway surfing. And
this is the blue sky city.
What's in a name?
The blue sky city, that could be anywhere.
The reviews for Calgary's new slogan that are not all sunshine.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
You are looking at the terrifying moments of an airstrike in the Gaza Strip today. The Hamas-run health ministry is saying that in the last 24 hours, Israeli airstrikes killed 48 people and wounded many more. Good evening and thanks for joining us. There is no end in sight to Israel's relentless campaign in Gaza, and that was confirmed today by Israel's prime minister, who warned there will be more imminent and painful blows to come. In Gaza's southern city of Rafah, overnight strikes killed at least 22 people. 18 of those were children. Incredibly, a baby pulled from the womb has survived, but both her mother and sister were among those killed in the strikes. And a grim discovery farther north. Palestinian authorities say nearly 200 bodies have been discovered in a mass grave inside a medical complex in Khan Yunis after the Israeli military withdrew from the city. According to reports, the grave contains bodies of elderly women, children, and young men. And there are scenes of violence and grief in the West Bank as well. Israeli Defense Forces say officers killed 2 people after they attempted to attack Israeli soldiers today. Our Crystal Goomansingh is in Jerusalem and joins us now. Crystal.
Carolyn, people here in Israel woke up to the news of that armed attack at the checkpoint in the West Bank. Now, when these incidents happen, the question that usually follows is, will there be more? Since the October 7th Hamas attacks, there has been an increased level of violence in the West Bank. Buildings reduced to rubble and blood spilled. Billed as a counter-terrorism operation, the multi-day raids by Israel Defense Forces in the Nur Shams camp led to mass gatherings and funerals. The IDF says 10 terrorists were killed during the raids that started early Friday. 8 others were taken into custody. Palestinian officials say 14 were killed, including a teenage boy. We are all for the battalion. We are all martyrs to be, says this woman. The Turkorum Battalion is an armed Palestinian militant group made up of different political factions. It's not known if there is any connection between that group and the 2 people who attacked IDF soldiers at a checkpoint in the north. Israeli officials reported shooting and killing 2 Palestinians after they allegedly tried to stab and shoot troops at the checkpoint. But it was a different group of soldiers, the Netzah Battalion, that prompted the Israeli prime minister to record a message of support. As our soldiers are united to protect us on the battlefield, we are united to protect them on the political field, said Benjamin Netanyahu. The U.S. has sanctioned people associated with settler violence in the West Bank, but never a group of soldiers. Axios reported the American administration is poised to make that move. The battalion is made up of ultra-Orthodox nationals and worked in the West Bank. They're being looked at because of possible violations for human rights. The unit was moved out of the West Bank in 2022 and is said to currently be in Gaza. If anyone thinks they can impose sanctions on a unit of the IDF, I will fight it with all my strength. A powerful and new blow against Hamas in Gaza was also pledged by the Israeli Prime Minister in his statement, potentially a sign of things to come in the next couple of days. Carolyn?
Crystal Goomansingh in Jerusalem. Thanks, Crystal. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has thanked American lawmakers for passing a $61 billion aid bill for his country. In an interview on U.S. television, he said the aid package needs to be signed into law as soon as possible so that his troops can push back Russia's invasion. But as Redmond Shannon reports, many experts say the best Ukraine can hope for in the short term is to stop Russian advances rather than retaking Ukrainian lands.
Firing off a shell from Ukraine's depleting supplies. Stocks these troops hope will soon be replenished. If the U.S. Congress passed the bill earlier, we wouldn't have lost so much ground. We may even have taken back some land, says this soldier.
The bill is passed.
After the House vote on Saturday, the U.S. Senate is expected to pass the bill in the coming days. An Associated Press report says U.S. weapons are already stockpiled in Europe, ready to send to Ukraine.
This aid will strengthen Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy thanked American lawmakers on U.S. TV today, saying it gives Ukraine a chance to win. But many believe it's more about stopping the losses than pushing Russia back.
That's very good that this decision is finally made. But I should tell you that with this package, we're winning the time. We're not winning the war. It's not something which will have a final and decisive impact.
Ukrainian MP Alexei Goncharenko is in Washington, where future Ukraine aid could be in doubt should Donald Trump return to the White House.
When people are discussing what will Mr. Trump do if he will be reelected as the president, I think nobody really knows. Maybe including Mr. Trump himself.
After a meeting on Thursday with Polish President Andrzej Duda, Trump said Ukrainian survival is important to the U.S., adding that Europe should match U.S. aid. The EU pledged a similar-sized aid package in February, possibly a partial consequence of Washington delays.
European countries recognized that you cannot rely on Washington. And so the increase in European support has been notable for Ukraine since the start of this year.
On Sunday, the Kremlin said Washington's new funding only plunges the U.S. deeper into a hybrid war against Russia. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
In Toronto, there's been a verdict in a high-profile case involving the death of a police officer, nearly 3 years after he was accused of intentionally killing Constable Jeffrey Northrup. Today, a jury found Umar Zameer not guilty. Catherine McDonald has more on the emotional reaction in court.
The courtroom was packed and there was a lot of anticipation after a 5-week trial and 3 days of deliberations. When the court registrar said the words "not guilty," Umar Zamir began sobbing. He was hugging his lawyers. There was silence where Margaret Northrup, Jeffrey Northrup's widow, was sitting, and she began hugging his partner. An emotional scene inside a Toronto courtroom Sunday as Umar Zamir learned he was found not guilty of first-degree murder and the lesser charges the jury was considering.
I never meant any of this to happen. I am sorry for what had happened, but I never meant any of this to happen to this day.
The not guilty verdict comes after a 5-week trial in which jurors had to decide whether Zamir, a 31-year-old accountant, deliberately ran down Toronto Police Constable Jeffrey Northrup in the underground parkade of Nathan Phillips Square on July 2nd, 2021.
So it's not a day for celebration, but it is a day for immense relief because it wouldn't have done any good at all to brand Mr. Zamir a criminal. He is not a criminal. This was an unfortunate, terrible situation that happened.
Northrup and his partner were investigating a stabbing that night and approached Zamir, who was leaving the parkade after celebrating Canada Day with his pregnant wife and 2-year-old son. Both Northrup and his partner were wearing plainclothes and began banging on Zamir's vehicle when he didn't stop. Zamir testified he didn't know that Northrup and his partner were police officers. He was boxed in by an unmarked police minivan, trying to escape what he thought were a band of criminals. Zamir ran over Northrup, who had been sideswiped and was on the ground, unaware he had hit anyone.
I'm very disappointed in today's outcome. From day one, all I've wanted is accountability.
The chief and the head of the police union were also in the courtroom for the verdict.
I share the feelings of our members who are hoping for a different outcome.
Umar Zamir is now a free man. His lawyer says it's too soon to say what's next. His focus now on going home and being with his family. Carolyn?
Catherine McDonald, thanks. Also in Toronto, a teenage boy is fighting for his life in hospital after he was seriously hurt while trying to surf on top of a moving train. The boy was among a group of teens who climbed on top of a GO train. As Mike Drolet reports, they're far from the only ones taking part in the dangerous stunt these days, especially in the age of social media.
Most Toronto area residents see the GO train as a reliable way to avoid the traffic snarl of the city. But last week, a pair of daredevils were spotted not riding, but surfing on top of a speeding GO train. Late last night, police say a similar situation played out with 4 youth ages 14 to 16.
While the train was in motion, 3 of the youths left the coach area of the train and climbed up onto the roof.
Tragically, one of the youth came into contact with a stationary object and fell off the moving train.
The injured boy is 15 years old, and he was transported to a hospital, and he is there today, and he is in life-threatening condition.
Police are still investigating how the trio accessed the roof, or if they were recording video at the time. Metrolinx, which runs the GO train service, has seen several recent cases appear on social media. In Vancouver, this video posted a week ago of a man riding between 2 SkyTrain cars went viral, adding more fuel to the dangerous trend of so-called urban explorers taking extreme chances for social media likes. And the audience is there. A study released last year found 82% of Canadian teens access social media daily. Those with their own phones were far more likely to be online. Digital literacy experts say the hunt for clicks leads to more dangerous stunts.
At the same time as an influencer is radicalizing their audience, the audience can have a radicalizing effect on the influencer, pushing them to radicalize more.
Many social media sites like Instagram forbid showing illegal acts, but allow risky behavior. There's a fine line between the two, and both sides can be dangerous. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
It appears BC's wildfire season is off to an early start. In the central region, south of Quesnel, firefighters are battling the Burgess Creek fire, which has rapidly grown to about 1,600 hectares. It was discovered Saturday afternoon and is burning out of control, fueled by dry and windy conditions. For now, no buildings or homes are under threat. Several other smaller fires are active in the region, including the Cooney Bay fire near Kamloops, which is now contained. It's an important step, but is it enough? Coming up, why some Canadians are worried the National Disability Benefit will be a bust. Plus, a day in the life of the longest resident of Vancouver's Stanley Park. Canada is taking a step towards launching a long-awaited national disability benefit. It was unveiled in Tuesday's federal budget, with payments expected to begin in July 2025. The Liberals say the program is meant to lift Canadians living with disabilities out of poverty. But as Mike Armstrong explains, critics say the funding isn't even close to what's needed.
The hope for David Rowe is to someday move out. His parents have cared for him since he was born with severe cerebral palsy. There was optimism that a new federal disability benefit would make things easier, but about the most positive spin his parents can put on it is that it's better than nothing.
For an adult trying to live independently, $200 a month is a pittance.
We are literally making history. Merci. Merci.
Canada's new disability benefit became law last summer, but for 9 months the question was, how much would it be? Advocates argued people with disabilities needed about $1,000 a month, money that would be on top of provincial benefits. Well, when the budget dropped with the numbers last Tuesday, it fell considerably short.
The $200 checks the box for the federal government so they can say they've launched this program. But it's not going to make a meaningful difference.
The federal benefit program will be funded with $6.2 billion over 6 years. About 600,000 adult low-income Canadians with disabilities will be eligible. The maximum would be about $2,400 per person per year. While in every province right now, social assistance programs for people with disabilities place them below the poverty line. Ottawa's new benefit would get people closer, but advocates say not by much.
We know Canada can do better.
Rabia Kheder is with a group called Disability Without Poverty. She says she'd been warned the benefit would be disappointing, but didn't expect it to be heartbreaking.
In some cases, there were people waiting in anticipation of this benefit lifting them out of poverty so they don't have to consider medical assistance in dying.
It would be great to be able to do more, and we aspire to that.
The federal finance minister says the benefit is a starting point, admitting it's not quite a solution. While the issue is a provincial jurisdiction, Ottawa's calling on the provinces to give more money and says it will be watching. It wants to ensure the new benefit doesn't lead to a clawback of what people are already receiving. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Reviewing Calgary's rebrand, coming up, why it's not all blue skies ahead for the city's new slogan. Calgary is best known for its stampede and as being a major hub for the energy sector, but the city's new branding is focusing instead on sunny weather. The new slogan, Blue Sky City, came after a nearly $5 million consultation process. But as Heather Urix-West tells us, not everyone is sold.
It's not false advertising. On most days, Calgary does enjoy a beautiful blue sky. But as a new slogan, the reviews on Blue Sky City are mixed.
There's blue skies today. It's a bit cloudy, but yeah.
The new, what is it? The Blue Sky City, that could be anywhere.
With previous slogans, be part of the energy and heart of the new West, leaning on the city's energy and Western roots, Blue Sky City is perhaps a more inclusive tag. But will it be successful? The odds aren't very good.
About 86% of city rebrands fail. And so only 14% do well, and there's good reason for it, because again, it's very hard to distill that message down to just a few words and capture everything.
For an example of a good slogan, look no further than I love New York. Think of Sin City, and what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas immediately comes to mind. But here in Canada, that kind of success has been harder to come by. Victoria may be beautiful, but its branding back in 2018 had to be quickly ditched.
Oceans apart from ordinary makes me feel lucky to be living on this ocean then.
It's catchy. Because the beer company that came up with the line first thought so too.
There's the one in Regina where they were trying to play off of a pun.
But the Show Us Your Regina and City That Rhymes with Fun campaign faced so much backlash, it was pulled with an apology. So far, Calgary's new slogan is faring better.
This is the Blue Sky City.
The brand officials hope will bring investment and visitors the city's way. Heather Urix-West, Global News, Calgary.
Life in the forest. Next, how this man has made Vancouver's Stanley Park his home for more than 3 decades.
I just had this overwhelming feeling I was never going to see her alive again.
I did see something suspicious, and I was pretty sure that I had caught the killer on camera.
I kept on telling the police he's vulnerable, but they just not hear me.
It's a really desperate feeling. It's your child. You want the whole world to help.
And what he needed was help, but he was met with force.
There's no excuse. That made me even more angry.
He might not have gotten his hands dirty, but he did it.
Crime Beat, Fridays on Global.
Vancouver's Stanley Park is home to eagles and beavers and coyotes, but it's also home to a handful of people. And one man has lived there longer than any other, Chris Bailey. He's endured winters, wind, and rain under the canopy of giant cedars in a handmade shelter. As Alyssa Thibault reports, it's in the depths of the forest he's creating works of art.
Good morning.
Hello. Hello. How are you?
Since 1990, Chris Bailey has lived in the forest in the middle of Vancouver.
The first 17 years in here were candlelight.
Everything about Chris's campsite is simple but functional.
The rain factor that comes down just like water off a duck's back.
Accounting for the rain and the cold.
Right, you got a blanket, 1 sleeping bag, 2, 3, and a 4th. So that's good for like 20 below.
The roof is made of clear tarpaulin and old fishing nets, so natural light beams through. Flowers add colour, and one side of the tent is always open, so birds can fly in.
The chickadees are a godsend, really. It's a whole relationship that, say, over 7 or 8 years has kind of been really total support.
Each morning he meditates for an hour before dawn, and art
I've got several other bags like that.
Is his true passion.
How long do you think you would spend doing this in a day?
In a day? The whole day.
Abstract paintings and sketches created in the forest. Despite his camp being fairly hidden, Chris's presence wasn't a secret.
Because if he didn't come by, we would go out and check on him.
Now retired Vancouver Police Constable Mike Keller first met Chris Bailey in 2003.
We were really focused on the people that were drug addicted, alcohol addicted, involved in crime, maybe using the park as a place to hide or even do crime. Chris was not one of those people. At Christmas time one year, he brought me some art.
It's this connection to art and nature that's kept him here so long.
When you first went into the park, did you know at that point that you were going to be there for 30 years?
No, not at all. You know, if I checked out of here tomorrow into the great beyond, you know, fine, I'll go with it.
A remarkable life, quietly lived in the shadow of a bustling city. Alyssa Thibault, Global News, Vancouver.
And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Carolyn Jarvis. Tonight's Your Canada is Vancouver's 40th annual Sun Run. More than 45,000 runners signed up for what's known as Canada's largest road race, and this was the biggest turnout since the pandemic. Thanks for watching. Donna will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great night.